The assessment. High Overseer Ixal watched the holographic projection with 6 of their primary eyes, keeping their secondary set fixed on the assembled Vraxian High Council. The crystalline chamber aboard the observation vessel, Silent Watcher, hummed with the subtle vibrations of quantum computers processing the vast amount of data streaming in from their cloaked probes orbiting the blue-green world below. Primitive, Second Overseer Nyx chittered, their iridescent scales reflecting the soft blue light of the projection. Look at how they waste resources on these entertainment structures. The projection zoomed in on a stadium where thousands of humans had gathered to watch what appeared to be a competitive ritual. Ixal's facial plates shifted in what passed for amusement among their kind. Indeed, their civilization appears to be fractured into hundreds of competing territories. They spend more energy on these diversions than on space exploration. The projection shifted to show various Earth cities, each one a testament to what the Vraxians saw as inefficient design and wasted potential. The data streams painted a picture that delighted the High Council. Earth's military forces, while numerous, relied on chemical propulsion and primitive nuclear fission. Their space presence was minimal, a single orbital habitat, a handful of satellites, and scattered debris from their early exploration attempts. Their most advanced quantum computers were barely able to handle million-qubit operations, while Vraxian systems routinely processed at the billion-qubit scale. The resource deposits are substantial, Third Overseer Vex announced, bringing up geological surveys. Particularly interesting are their reserves of rare earth elements and the unusual concentration of biosynthetic compounds in their oceans. A full harvesting operation would yield enough materials to fuel our expansion for the next 50 cycles. The council chamber fell silent as they contemplated the possibilities. The Vraxian collective had been searching for suitable harvest worlds, but most were either too well defended by advanced civilizations or too depleted to be worth the effort. Earth seemed perfect, rich in resources, inhabited by a species that had barely mastered basic spaceflight and positioned in a strategically valuable sector of the galaxy. What of their defensive capabilities? Ixal asked, more out of procedure than concern. The humans' most powerful weapons were fusion devices that wouldn't even scratch Vraxian shields, and their electronic warfare systems were laughably basic. Their military doctrine is fascinating, Intelligence Director Zara responded, her crystalline form shifting colors as she accessed her neural archives. They possess weapons of mass destruction, but seem terrified of using them. Most of their conflicts are limited in scope, bound by thousands of rules and treaties. They spend more effort avoiding war than preparing for it. This brought a wave of color-shifting amusement from the council members. A species that feared war would be easy to subjugate. The Vraxians had encountered similar civilizations before. They typically surrendered after the first show of force, eager to avoid conflict at any cost. There is one curious anomaly, Zara continued, causing the council members to shift their attention. They devote substantial resources to creating simulated conflicts, interactive entertainment programs that model warfare, space combat, and resource management. The complexity of these simulations is impressive. Entertainment. Nyx dismissed with a flutter of their scales. Like their sports arenas, they channel their aggressive instincts into harmless diversions rather than actual combat preparation. It makes them predictable. Ixal considered the data before them. Everything pointed to an easy conquest. The humans were divided, technologically inferior, and apparently conflict-averse. Their simulated wars and sports would not help them against real Vraxian weaponry. I propose we proceed with standard harvesting protocols, Ixal announced. Begin with isolated resource extraction points to test their response. When they demonstrate their inability to resist effectively, we can proceed with full colonization. The council voted unanimously in favor. The humans would never see them coming. Vraxian stealth technology was far beyond Earth's detection capabilities. They would establish their harvest bases in remote locations, and by the time humanity realized what was happening, it would be too late. There is one other matter, Zara interjected as the council prepared to adjourn. Our cultural analysis has revealed an unusual number of stories and entertainment media depicting alien invasions and humanity's response to them. They seem oddly preoccupied with such scenarios. More entertainment, Ixel replied dismissively. They imagine themselves as great warriors because they lack the experience of real conflict. Reality will prove quite different from their simulations. As the council dispersed to begin preparation for the harvest operation, none of them considered that humanity's entertainment might be more than mere diversion. None of them understood that every alien invasion movie, every space combat game, every war simulation had been unknowingly preparing humanity for this exact moment. None of them realized that humanity's apparent fear of war was not born of cowardice, but of hard-won wisdom about its terrible cost. Wisdom that would make them all the more formidable when given no choice but to fight. The Vraxians' surveys had recorded Earth's military bases, counted their weapons, and measured their technology. But they had failed to measure humanity's creativity, their adaptability, or their determination. They hadn't understood that humans' entertainment simulations were not just games, but vast experiments in problem-solving and strategy. They hadn't grasped that humanity's divisions were superficial compared to their capacity to unite against an external threat. Most critically, they had failed to recognize that a species that devotes so much effort to avoiding war might do so not out of fear, but out of a deep understanding of their own devastating capability when pushed too far. As the silent watcher cloaked and moved into position to begin the harvest operation, the High Council remained confident in their assessment. They had no way of knowing that their carefully laid plans were about to collide with humanity's greatest strength, the ability to do the impossible when no other choice remained. The harvest of Earth would begin in 3 days. The Vraxian collective was about to learn why humans spent so much time imagining alien invasions and how to stop them. First contact. Lieutenant Commander Raina Patel stared at the satellite data for the 5th time, her coffee long forgotten on the desk of the Global Space Defense Initiative's monitoring station. The anomalies had started 3 days ago, brief distortions in the electromagnetic spectrum above remote areas, always disappearing before they could be properly analyzed. "Run it again, Marcus," she ordered, watching as her colleague input the commands. Marcus Rodriguez, the station's senior data analyst, had dark circles under his eyes from the endless hours of monitoring. "Same pattern, different location," he reported, highlighting the latest distortion over the Siberian tundra. "It's like something's there, but our instruments can't quite get a fix on it. The Russians are reporting similar readings, and now the Chinese have confirmed matching anomalies over the Gobi Desert." Raina's tablet buzzed with another update. Similar distortions reported over the Australian outback, the Sahara, and the Canadian Arctic. Too many to be coincidence, too precise to be natural phenomena. "Look at this," Marcus said, pulling up a geological survey overlay. "Every single anomaly appears over major deposits of rare earth elements or unusual mineral concentrations." Before Raina could respond, every screen in the monitoring station suddenly flickered. The satellite feeds became snowy with interference, and a high-pitched whine emanated from their communications equipment. "Multiple contacts," Marcus shouted, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "They're decloaking. Everywhere. Sir, we're tracking over 50 unknown objects materializing in Earth's atmosphere." The main screen filled with images from military and civilian satellites worldwide. Massive crystalline structures, each the size of a small city, had appeared over various remote locations. Their surfaces rippled with what appeared to be living light, and smaller craft swarmed around them like insects around a hive. "Get me GSDI command," Raina ordered, but the communications remained garbled with interference. "They're jamming us," she realized. "All conventional frequencies are being blocked." Then, every screen, every phone, every digital display on Earth simultaneously activated. A figure appeared, tall, insectoid, with multiple eyes and iridescent scales. When it spoke, its words were somehow perfectly understandable in every language. "People of Earth, High Overseer Ixal began. Your world has been selected for resource harvesting by the Vraxian Collective. Resist, and you will be eliminated. Cooperate, and you may be permitted to exist in the designated preservation zones after the harvest is complete. The message continued with details of the harvest operation, but Reyna was already moving. She'd spent years studying theoretical first contact scenarios, and this was textbook psychological warfare. Show overwhelming force, offer a false choice, and expect immediate capitulation. But humanity had been preparing for this moment in ways the Vraxians couldn't imagine. Within hours, the world's militaries had mobilized, but not in the conventional way the Vraxians expected. Instead of futile direct attacks, humanity implemented what gamers had long called speedrun strats, exploiting weaknesses in patterns and systems that would never occur to their creators. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Jasper Wong, a teenage Minecraft player from Singapore, noticed something about the Vraxian jamming signal. It's packet-based, he wrote in a viral post. They're using quantum encryption, but the packet structure is similar to multiplayer game networking. There are always exploits in networking code. Within hours, a global network of gamers and cybersecurity experts had crowdsourced a solution. The Vraxian jamming relied on overwhelming Earth's communications with quantum noise, but human gamers had spent decades finding ways around lag and connection issues. By treating the alien signals like a particularly aggressive DDoS attack, they found ways to maintain communication through the interference. The Vraxians were puzzled by humanity's response. Instead of panicking or attempting direct military engagement, humans seemed to be ignoring them. The harvest operations proceeded as planned, but every time they established a new extraction site, they found the valuable deposits had already been removed, often hours before the Vraxians arrived. Impossible, Ixal declared as another planned harvest site proved empty. Their sensors cannot detect our cloaked ships. They cannot predict our movements. But they could. Years of resource management games had taught humans to recognize optimal extraction patterns. Thousands of strategy gamers had analyzed the Vraxian movements and recognized their underlying algorithms. They were efficient, logical, and therefore predictable. The Vraxians' first direct casualty came from what they considered a primitive defense system. A harvester ship was destroyed not by military weapons, but by a repurposed mining laser calibrated to the exact frequency of their shields, a frequency discovered by analyzing crystalline formations in human video games that used similar visual effects. They're using their entertainment systems as combat simulators, Intelligence Director Zora reported, her crystalline form clouded with concern. Every game, every piece of science fiction, every simulation. They've been unconsciously preparing for this exact scenario for decades. The humans' response continued to defy Vraxian predictions. Instead of centralizing their command structure, they operated in small, autonomous groups. Their tactics seemed to come from what they called speedrunning, finding unexpected solutions that bypassed traditional approaches entirely. When the Vraxians attempted to establish a major harvest base in the Australian outback, they found themselves under attack not from military forces, but from civilian mining equipment reprogrammed with algorithms from resource management games. Their quantum communications were disrupted by interference patterns based on multiplayer networking exploits. Their automated defense systems were overwhelmed by tactics that seemed to make no logical sense, until the Vraxians realized they were facing strategies refined through millions of hours of human gameplay. This is not possible, Ixal insisted as reports of failed harvest operations continued to pour in. They are primitives. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Their technology may be primitive, Zara responded, but their minds are not. They're not fighting us with superior technology. They're fighting us with superior imagination. As the first week of the invasion drew to a close, the Vraxian Collective faced an uncomfortable reality. They had expected to harvest a primitive world, and instead found themselves in a conflict unlike any they had encountered in their 1,000-year history. Their carefully planned harvest operation had been disrupted not by advanced weapons or superior technology, but by humans using their own systems against them in ways the Vraxians had never conceived possible. And this, they would soon learn, was only the beginning of humanity's response. The counter. Dr. Raj Sharma stood in the underground facility nicknamed the Playground, surrounded by the strangest research team ever assembled. To his left, Professor Wei Lin, quantum physicist, was debating shield harmonics with a professional StarCraft player. To his right, a teenage Minecraft modder was explaining redstone logic to a nutto cybersecurity expert. "Show me the capture again," Raj requested, and the holographic display lit up with footage of the downed Vraxian harvester. Its crystalline structure had been nearly intact when they recovered it, a testament to the precision of their mining laser hack. "Their technology isn't magic," announced Kenzo Tanaka, stepping forward with a tablet displaying complex simulations. The former game developer had proven invaluable in understanding Vraxian systems. "It's just really advanced quantum computing. But quantum systems have rules, and rules can be broken." The breakthrough had come 3 days ago. They'd discovered that Vraxian technology was based on crystalline quantum processors, similar to what dozens of science fiction games had theorized. Years of gamers optimizing fictional quantum systems had given humanity a head start in understanding the real thing. "Their whole network runs on quantum entanglement," Kenzo explained, pulling up a diagram that looked suspiciously like a game tech tree. But they never considered that someone might treat quantum interference as a feature rather than a bug. Above ground, the conflict continued to escalate. The Vraxians, frustrated by their failed harvest attempts, had begun more aggressive operations. But each move they made revealed more about their technology, and humanity's understanding grew exponentially. In orbit, Commander Yuki Nakamura of the hastily retrofitted Space Force vessel Speedrunner watched as another Vraxian ship fell into their trap. The aliens' quantum shields were nearly impenetrable, unless you deliberately created a quantum uncertainty state that forced them to either drop their shields or risk shield collapse. EVE Online players figured that one out, her tactical officer commented with a grin. The massive multiplayer game had featured similar shield mechanics, and its players had spent years finding ways to exploit them. Back in the playground, Raj's team had made another breakthrough. Their crystalline computing architecture, Wei Lin explained, pointing to a complicated diagram. "It's vulnerable to specific resonance frequencies, just like in Crystal Palace Siege," interrupted Jamie O'Connor, the competitive gamer who'd first proposed the theory. "The game came out 3 years ago. The whole mechanics were based on using sound waves to disrupt crystal-based shields." The Vraxian High Council was in chaos. Intelligence Director Zora's latest report had sent waves of chromatic distress through the assembled leaders. "They've adapted our technology," she explained, her own crystalline form flickering with agitation. "Not by understanding it completely, but by intuiting its rules through their entertainment simulations. They're not reaching our level of technology. They're finding ways to make their primitive technology interact with ours in ways we never imagined possible." "Impossible," Ixel declared, but with less certainty than before. "Their games are fiction. They cannot prepare them for real combat." "The games taught them to think differently," Zora countered. "To see patterns, to find exploits, to try solutions that seem illogical. They don't need to match our technology. They just need to understand it enough to disrupt it." The humans' tactics continued to evolve. They discovered that Vraxian quantum communications could be disrupted by generating specific patterns of interference, patterns that thousands of gamers had already optimized through years of finding exploits in game networking code. Their weapons, while primitive, were being modified with insights from gaming communities. The Vraxians watched in disbelief as human missiles executed maneuvers from space combat games, following paths that their targeting systems classified as impossible trajectories. "They're treating our technology like a game system to be exploited," Zara reported. and they have billions of hours of collective experience in finding exploits in complex systems. The situation reached a critical point when humans demonstrated their first reverse-engineered Vraxian technology. It wasn't a perfect copy. It was crude, inefficient, and barely functional. But it worked, and more importantly, it proved they were learning. Each failed harvest operation gives them more data, Zora warned. Every piece of damaged equipment we leave behind becomes a learning opportunity. They're not just fighting us. They're studying us, adapting to us, finding ways to turn our own technological superiority against us. In the playground, Raj's team had just made another breakthrough. They'd found a way to use the quantum resonance from Vraxian communications to power their own devices, a trick inspired by an obscure Korean mobile game about energy harvesting. We don't need to understand everything about their technology, Raj explained to the military observers. We just need to understand enough to disrupt it. And thanks to decades of games exploring these concepts, we already have a framework for understanding how advanced quantum systems might work. The Vraxians had expected humanity to either surrender or fight a conventional war. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that treated their advanced technology not as an insurmountable advantage, but as a system to be understood, exploited, and ultimately overcome. As the conflict entered its second month, humanity's response continued to evolve in ways the Vraxians couldn't predict. Every failed attack, every lost ship, every disrupted harvest operation added to human understanding. They weren't just fighting back. They were learning, adapting, and preparing for what would come next. And in the playground, humanity's unconventional think tank had just made their biggest breakthrough yet, one that would force the Vraxians to realize just how drastically they had underestimated human ingenuity. Desperate measures. High Overseer Ixal's crystalline form shimmered with barely contained rage as they reviewed the latest battle reports. In the 3 months since their harvest operation began, the Vraxian collective had lost more ships and resources than in the previous century of expansions combined. The humans have adapted too quickly, Intelligence Director Zora warned, her form displaying patterns of deep concern. They've learned to predict our harvest operations, disrupt our quantum shields, and even reverse engineer some of our basic technologies. Then we will no longer play by their rules, Ixal declared. Deploy the main fleet, full invasion protocols. We will crush their resistance with overwhelming force. In the playground, alarms blared as sensors detected massive quantum disturbances in near-Earth space. Dr. Raj Sharma watched in awe as the main view screen displayed the arrival of the Vraxian invasion fleet. Over 1,000 ships, each larger than their previous harvesters. They're done testing us. Commander Yuki Nakamura's voice came through the quantum-encrypted channels humanity had reverse-engineered. This is their real military force. But humanity wasn't unprepared. The past months of skirmishes and technological adaptation had taught them more than the Vraxians realized. In hidden facilities around the world, classified projects were being activated. Admiral Helena Torres stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship Speedrunner Prime, watching as humanity's secret weapon was unveiled. During the Cold War, the world's major powers hadn't just been building nuclear weapons. They'd been preparing for something exactly like this. All stations, initiate Project Phoenix, she commanded. Across the globe, hidden silos opened. But instead of missiles, they launched specially designed quantum resonators, based on technology reversed engineered from Vraxian debris and optimized using principles from countless space combat games. The Vraxian fleet commanders watched in confusion as their quantum sensors detected strange energy patterns emanating from Earth. Their confusion turned to alarm as they realized their quantum communications were being disrupted in ways their systems couldn't compensate for. Impossible, Ixal declared as reports of shield failures and system malfunctions flooded in. Their technology is too primitive to affect our fleet's primary systems. But humanity wasn't fighting with technology alone. They were fighting with decades of collective problem-solving experience, with strategies refined through millions of hours of gaming, with solutions that seemed to defy conventional military logic. In orbit, Commander Nakamura's fleet executed maneuvers that the Vraxians' tactical computers classified as irrational and suicide, until those same maneuvers resulted in the destruction of their most powerful dreadnoughts. The humans were using their knowledge of Vraxian shield harmonics to create devastating resonance cascades, turning the aliens' own defensive systems into weapons. They're not just using their military forces, Zara reported, her crystalline form clouded with disbelief. Their civilian infrastructure, their entertainment systems, their global communication networks, they've turned their entire civilization into a weapon against us. The Vraxians watched in horror as human ships performed what gamers had termed physics exploits, maneuvers that took advantage of the way Vraxian sensors interpreted spacetime, creating blind spots and attack opportunities that should have been impossible. In the playground, Raj's team had made their final breakthrough. They discovered that Vraxian quantum systems, for all their advancement, had a fundamental weakness. They couldn't handle true randomness. The aliens' technology was built on perfect quantum coherence, making it vulnerable to deliberately induced quantum chaos. Launch the Chaos Protocol, Admiral Torres ordered. Around the Earth, thousands of quantum resonators activated simultaneously, each broadcasting patterns derived from millions of randomly generated game scenarios. The effect on the Vraxian fleet was devastating. Their quantum shields, dependent on perfect coherence, began to fail. Their communications, based on precise quantum entanglement, dissolved into noise. Their targeting systems, unable to process the quantum uncertainty humanity had introduced into the battlefield, became useless. This is not war as we understand it, Zara reported to the increasingly desperate High Council. They're not trying to match our technology. They're deliberately introducing chaos into systems that require order. They're using their understanding of our vulnerabilities in ways we never imagined possible. The battle reached its climax as humanity revealed their ultimate adaptation of Vraxian technology. They hadn't copied the aliens' quantum weapons. They'd found a way to turn the quantum realm itself into a weapon. Every video game server on Earth had been repurposed to generate quantum interference patterns, creating a global network of disruption that the Vraxians couldn't counter. Full retreat, Ixal finally ordered, their crystalline form cracking with stress. We cannot defeat an enemy that turns chaos itself into a weapon. As the Vraxian fleet fled Earth's space, humanity celebrated their victory. But in the playground, Raj and his team were already looking ahead. They had learned more about quantum technology in 3 months of desperate innovation than they might have discovered in decades of peaceful research. They thought our entertainment was a weakness, Admiral Torres commented as she watched the last Vraxian ships disappear. They never understood that humans had been practicing for this moment all along. Every game, every simulation, every crazy strategy that seemed impossible, it was all preparation for thinking beyond the conventional. The Vraxian invasion had failed not because humanity was more advanced, but because they were willing to try solutions that no advanced civilization would consider rational. In seeking to harvest a primitive world, the Vraxians had instead awakened a civilization that turned their own technological superiority against them. As the dust settled, humanity began to realize that this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. They had proven themselves capable of standing against one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The question now was, what would they do with that knowledge? In the depths of space, Intelligence Director Zura prepared her final report to the Galactic Council, knowing that the revelation of humanity's capabilities would send shockwaves through the galactic community. The humans weren't just ready for the galaxy. They were ready to change it. The reckoning. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so silent. Representatives from 1,000 civilizations watched as Intelligence Director Zura presented her final report on the failed Earth harvest operation. Her crystalline form projected images of the battle, showing human innovations that defied conventional military doctrine. The Vraxian collective's assessment of humanity was fundamentally flawed. Zara stated, her voice modulator carrying traces of humility that surprised the assembled delegates. We mistook technological advancement for civilization's true measure of power. We failed to understand that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology, but their way of thinking. The chamber erupted in murmurs as she displayed footage of human ships executing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics, their crude weapons enhanced with insights that had transformed them into devastating anti-Vraxian arsenals. Their gaming simulations, a Neuraxian delegate chittered in disbelief, were not mere entertainment. They were laboratories, Zara explained. Billions of humans, spending countless hours exploring theoretical scenarios, finding exploits in complex systems, and developing solutions that no rational species would consider. When faced with our superior technology, they didn't try to match it. They found ways to turn it against itself. In the newly established Earth Embassy aboard the Council station, Dr. Raj Sharma and Admiral Helena Torres prepared for their first official diplomatic meeting. The room buzzed with quantum-dampening fields, a human innovation that had emerged from their conflict with the Vraxians. They're still having trouble understanding us, Torres remarked, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The concept of using entertainment to solve real-world problems seems to break their minds. That's our advantage, Raj replied with a slight smile. They think in linear paths. We think in cheat codes and speedruns. The aftermath of the Vraxian invasion had transformed Earth. The quantum technology it reverse-engineered had revolutionized human science, but more importantly, it had united humanity in unprecedented ways. Former rival nations now collaborated on space defense initiatives, sharing technologies and resources. The playground had expanded into a global network of innovation centers, where gamers worked alongside scientists to push the boundaries of what was possible. The strategies that had seemed absurd in games were being applied to real-world problems, yielding breakthroughs that stunned the galactic community. Humanity's application for council membership must be carefully considered, High Chancellor Vex of the Andromedans announced to the chamber. They have demonstrated capabilities that we cannot ignore. They are still primitives, objected a Centaurian representative. Their base technology is centuries behind council standards. And yet, Zora countered, they defeated our most advanced fleet using technology they developed in months. Imagine what they might achieve in years, in decades. The council's debate was interrupted by a priority alert. On the main display, a new crisis unfolded. A Shadowkin invasion fleet had emerged in the Orion sector, threatening several council worlds with their planet-destroying weapons. The Shadowkin cannot be reasoned with, the High Chancellor stated grimly. Their quantum phase technology makes their ships virtually invulnerable to our weapons. All eyes turned to the human representatives. Admiral Torres stepped forward, activating a holographic display of her own. We might have some ideas about that, she offered. We have this old game called Phase Shift Command that explored some interesting theories about quantum phase vulnerabilities. In the following months, humanity's influence in the galaxy grew not through military might or technological superiority, but through their unique approach to problem-solving. Their seemingly irrational solutions, born from decades of gaming and simulation, repeatedly proved effective against threats that had stymied the Council for centuries. The Vraxian collective, humbled by their defeat, became unlikely allies. Their advanced technology, combined with humanity's innovative thinking, led to breakthroughs that neither civilization could have achieved alone. The quantum chaos protocols that had defeated the Vraxian fleet were refined into new forms of faster-than-light travel and communication. 1 year after the failed invasion, High Overseer Ixal stood before the Council alongside Admiral Torres, jointly presenting the new initiative for galactic defense. We have learned, Ixal admitted, their crystalline form displaying patterns of wisdom, gained through humility. That true advancement comes not from perfecting existing systems, but from being willing to think beyond them. Back on Earth, in a small gaming cafe in Singapore, Jasper Wong smiled as he played the latest simulation game. one that incorporated real Vraxian quantum mechanics into its gameplay. Around the world, millions of players were unknowingly preparing solutions for the next great challenge humanity would face. The galaxy has changed, Zora concluded in her final report to the Council. Humanity has shown us that progress doesn't always follow a linear path. Sometimes the greatest innovations come from those willing to play games with the fundamental rules of the universe. As the Council session ended, the representatives departed with a new understanding. They had expected to find primitives on that small blue world, and instead discovered a species that turned entertainment into innovation, chaos into strategy, and games into solutions for problems that had puzzled the galaxy's greatest minds. The Vraxian invasion had failed, but it had succeeded in awakening something far more significant. A civilization that would transform the galaxy not through conquest or technological superiority, but through the power of human creativity and the unexpected wisdom found in play. In the vast expanse of space, humanity had found its place not as conquerors or victims, but as innovators who saw possibilities where others saw only rules. And in their games, their simulations, and their endless capacity for imaginative solutions, they had discovered a power greater than any advanced technology: the power to think differently.